the Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Oh, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Why We Vote. It is Friday, October 24th, although it's Thursday, October 23rd when I'm recording this. And Brian is out in California. He is at a retirement party for a friend. And so you got me. You got me tonight. And I will be joined by a very special guest. And we're going to go through some Mesa County, Colorado stuff. We're going to talk about the Mesa reports this week. The handlers, I believe they're the handlers of the non-technical clerks. The Colorado County Clerks Association issued a report debunking the Mesa reports that came out of the images that Tina Peters took in 2021. And this is a bit of a rerun because they came out with this very similar, if not the same, debunk back when they were trying to pass the bill I've told you guys about a whole bunch of times, Senate Bill 22-153. That bill law was passed and signed into law, took the power away from the clerks, took a lot of the power away from the clerks, and made the images that Tina took, made that unlawful. It's not unlawful when Tina Peters did it. And that's why she was not charged with that, not convicted of that. Even when they say that she was convicted and got 9 years for election meddling, that's misinformation and disinformation. I would argue it's disinformation because disinformation is the one that has the intent to deceive. And so we're going to get into that. I'll get into that with my special guest who will be joining me here shortly. Before we do that, let's hear from our incredible sponsors. And first up, we have the Badlands shop. When your favorite Badlands show wraps up without a raid, visit the Badlands website to explore our incredible sponsors. From products featured on the shows to kickstarting your shopping list, the Badlands shop has you covered. And with the holidays coming up, guys, it's a good time to check out our local America First sponsors. We've got great sponsors. They are small American businesses. Some of them are large American businesses, and they do great, solid work, excellent products. Good to think about that this year on as you're thinking about gifts to buy. Every purchase you make is a powerful vote for the future you believe in. We make it easy to shop America First, supporting Badlands creators and patriot small businesses that champion freedom. You're not just buying a product, you're fueling a movement with every dollar spent. Thank you for supporting businesses that support Badlands Media. Head over to badlandsmedia.tv and click shop from the menu, or go directly to badlandsmedia.tv/shop. That's badlandsmedia.tv/shop. Get your merch, get all the, all the old favorites, and, even some new stuff. There's stuff being added to the shop all the time. It's a very cool place. And next up, I'm excited about this sponsor because they've come back. We've got Benson Honey. We love Benson Honey. Welcome to Benson Honey Farms, where every jar is pure gold. Benson Honey is excited to be back on Badlands Media with their latest 2025 honey harvest straight from their farm in Nebraska. While they've been busy working to improve our state politics from the ground up, they never forgot the importance of sharing the best honey around. Did you know that honey isn't just a sweet treat? It's nature's medicine, perfect for alleviating allergies, soothing upset stomachs, or as a delicious natural sweetener for baking. Benson Honey is never heated, ensuring you receive it in its pure, raw form. Full, natural goodness. At Benson Honey Farms, quality and purity are our top priority, and we're committed to providing the finest honey straight from the hive to your home. Join the supportive community and enjoy a special offer. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/honey and use promo code Badlands for 15% off your purchase. Benson Honey Farms, savor the authentic taste of Nebraska and support America First business. Follow on Facebook at Benson Honey Farms, and one more time, that's badlandsmedia.tv/honey. All right. So we're gonna get into it. So I am going to be joined this evening by Colonel Shawn Smith. You all will remember Colonel Smith. He's a friend of the show. He's been on. He's also my co-defendant in the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals right now, and I'm excited to have him join me. There's nobody better to go through the fake debunk of the Mesa reports than Shawn. Welcome, Shawn.
Hi. Good evening.
Yeah, it's good to see you. So do a refresh for the audience on who you are, your background, before we get into some of this fun stuff.
I am just some guy in Colorado. That's who I am. So I spent about 25 years on active duty in the Air Force. I was a space and missile operations officer and did a lot of special technical operations, which is like sensitive compartmented work. Got exposed to a lot of highly technical capabilities, including everything from development to the operation of them, to specifying requirements for them, and especially the testing them. I spent several years at the Air Force Operational Test Evaluation Center, designing and conducting operational testing of weapon systems, including very advanced, sophisticated computer-based weapon systems. And then at the very end of my career, as kind of punishment, I'd gone to do a fellowship with the Rand Corporation. And I knew if I took that assignment that the punishment was going to be a DC assignment, which I had avoided for the whole entirety of my career. So I took it and ended up in an office under the Office of Secretary of Defense called the Directorate of Operational Test and Evaluation. And that director is a presidential appointee who's responsible for oversight of the operational testing of weapon systems in the Department of Defense. So really his job is making sure the test designs are adequate, monitoring all the testing and the program status, and then reporting all of that as an independent source to the House and Senate Armed Services Committees, or to put it more directly and bluntly, to tell the truth when nobody else will. And so that's where I got assigned. Just, it was like the rest of my life, just, unbelievable good luck. It was the only place in DC that probably wouldn't have killed me because I wasn't suited really to do anything else there. So I did that.
So the 2020 election happens, and then what?
Well, so I had retired from active duty and gotten in my Jeep and driven to the mountains, and with no intention of ever coming out of them. And then I was just sitting at home on election day. I had already voted in person. I was sitting at home. I read an article, and before that point, literally before that moment, I could not have told you anything about how elections were run other than what a voter normally sees. I couldn't have told you the machines, the laws, regulations, vendors, nothing. I knew nothing about it. But as I said, the Rand wasn't my only research tour. I was trained to research, trained to do testing. I did a lot of, cyber work and cyber threat work and other threat work in the Department of Defense. I was basically trained by our government to do that exactly. And so I see this article about voter turnout in Colorado, and I thought, that doesn't sound right. So I started going to read, and it was like a rabbit hole I still haven't come out of. So I ended up reading all the data, looking at all the data on the Secretary of State's website, going back about 20 years, doing comparisons, regression analyses. And then I found out that they had the test reports from voter system testing, from election system testing. And I know, I know a lot about cyber threats, but I'm not really a cyber guy, but I know testing inside and out. And so when I read these test reports, at first I thought, this can't possibly be right, because this isn't how you'd have to test this against the threats that are presented against systems like this. And then I read the test plans, and then the test standards, and then I read the voting system manuals. After about 4 days, I was basically alarmed beyond belief that this was our system, that our whole entire nation and government were based on. So that's how
it wasn't like you were alarmed because it was the elections expertise is so complex and et cetera, et cetera. It's the opposite of that, right?
It's the whole idea that you need some sort of specialized expertise for election. In the first place, if you need specialized expertise, we're doing it wrong, because citizens have to be able to verify it for themselves. But
we're talking about counting.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about all of it. About all of it. If you do anything, in some sense, complexity makes things obscure and obstructs transparency. So,
breeds and hides corruption is actually what you've said, and I latched onto that, and I repeat that. I say that on this show all the time. That's a Shawn Smith original. Complexity breeds and hides corruption.
Yeah, if you're, I mean, we're relatively smart people. If somebody's explaining something and it's not like quantum physics that you're totally unfamiliar with and you can't understand it, there's a reason that you can't understand it. It's not because it's not understandable. It's because it's been made obscure. So, so the, voting and election systems they're just computers. There's no frontier of technology involved. And so if, it's like it's like if somebody says, well, this is a car, but it's an election car. Well, it still has to roll, right? Does that hold people? Does it move forward? Does it have to turn? All the functions are the same. Now you're just talking about what specific tech or even vendor you're using. So yeah, my alarm was based on how poorly designed the testing was, how incomplete it was in terms of threat representation, and the things that they accepted. Like when you can go read every single, for example, Dominion voting system test report, and you'll find you got to go back like 10 years to find one where they actually tested telecommunications at all. Most of them, they don't test security because they say they're modifications of prior versions. So it was things like that, but also just looking at the components they use, because by that point, I had spent about a year after I retired from active duty doing something called adversarial assessment. And we looked at the cyber penetration and exploitation by foreign adversaries against the national security organizations, including both contractors and government organizations, what they had penetrated, what they had exfiltrated. In other words, these are like state secrets, crown jewels of intellectual property and technology that they had penetrated and exfiltrated and exploited. And so I was intimately familiar with state of the art in terms of what advanced persistent threats are capable of, how they operate. The team had taken an approach to assessing what the foreign adversaries what their targets were, what they had gotten into, what they had learned, and what they were doing with it. That was very effective. And so I just took that same exact approach and looked at what was in our election and voting systems. And I realized that we had no supply chain security, which means that the technology is essentially completely untrustworthy. We would never trust that. It was, I think, 2012 by the time DOD realized, okay, we're doing this all wrong. We can't protect our systems. We can't protect our warfighters because we're using technology that hasn't been secured, and it's coming from overseas because all the offshoring that was done with manufacturing, especially with integrated circuits and computer components. There were really almost no U.S. Scale fabrication facilities anymore. There were really just two. They weren't very big, and they weren't doing anything that was being used, widespread. So
it sounds like what globalism did to pretty much every industry.
Yeah. At one point, our modernized global positioning system receivers that we were going to put into everything, munitions, platforms, everything. We had to do this sort of, what's the cup game, the 3-cup game where you move them around. It was like
I was thinking 3-card Monty, but that's no.
Yeah. We had to do this thing because the fabrication facility that we needed to build the prototypes in Fishkill, New York, was actually at that point had been sold to a foreign principality that wasn't even U.S. owned, at the time we started using it. And I could tell 10 stories about it. Anyway, I had the background and just derped my way into election, studying elections and election integrity. And that's it was December. It was like 1 month later. And some of the Colorado state legislators had asked me to come testify. And so I did. I was a part of a panel with a lifelong Democrat. He and I were, the only thing he and I agreed on was election integrity, but we agreed completely on that. And Harvey and I testified together.
Yeah, I remember that.
But, they wouldn't let me stay in the room because I wouldn't wear the COVID mask. And so they accidentally...
This is where I met you, right?
Yeah, they accidentally caused me to meet the other election integrity people. I didn't even know anything was going on, but since I was standing out in the hallway, I met you and talked to former state senator, a bunch of other people. So
and that hearing was a shit show.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So the hearing was scheduled for 2 hours, and it was to present concerns. It was legislative audit hearing. It was pulling teeth to get it done because Republicans are in the minority, but the minority has control of the legislative audit committee in Colorado, and so you're still fighting Republicans, right? In Colorado, it's uniparty. There's no difference, and so scheduled for 2 hours. it took like close to 8, and the majority of it, when all of the legislators were there and all of the cameras were there for the media, was, you know, the Wayne Williams and the people for the state talking about how great our elections are. And by the time that Shawn was able to testify and other people with expertise were able to come up and testify, it was like, you know, 6 hours later, and half the legislators had gone home, and they were being real cunty about it anyway. Like they didn't want to, they didn't want to be there. I remember a couple of them on the Zoom. They were on a Zoom right up on the wall and just being,
exactly. They were at home,
yeah,
and they were complaining about lunch and how long everything took.
yeah. And then they left and didn't come back. And then the media left. And after the media and half the legislators left, then they actually heard from the people who had things to say. And
Do you remember who was one of the first people to testify? It was Jen Ellis.
oh, right. Via Zoom, right?
Yeah.
I do remember that.
You know, all the cast of characters, Wayne Williams, you know, the Runbeck representative showed up to explain how great everything was.
Well, and we found out later that Wayne Williams could have been the Runbeck representative because he was a senior advisor to Runbeck, in addition to being city councilman at large and former secretary of state and whatever else.
And the
guy who took over Tina's office,
election official for Mesa. That whole thing was highly illegal, but
yeah. So we'll get into that report. Before, have you read the report yet?
Which one?
The new one that they put out this week.
Oh, Colorado can. I wouldn't call it a report, but I've read
its talking points.
Yeah,
So I was telling the audience before you came in, like, to me, when I first skimmed it, I'm like, well, this is a rerun of 22-153. They were trying to pass this legislation that took certain powers away from the county clerks and centralized them in the hands of the Secretary of State, and made the taking of images, the touching of the machines that Tina did a crime. It was not a crime when she did it. Dallas did it too. Right? Like, this was not a crime. It's been wholly misrepresented by all of the authorities in the state. But they were doing this bill. And so their Mesa reports were out there, and Matt Crane of the Colorado County Clerks Association writes this letter to the General Assembly, all of the senators and representatives, the Colorado ones, and basically goes through and sort of debunks the Mesa reports and makes a bunch of claims. And as I was reading through this week, I was thinking, this is a rerun. This is what we did before. But as I was going deeper into it today, I think that they might have expanded their claims a little bit. And they say some things that I think are unwise, given what we're coming to learn about our elections.
Yeah.
Before we get into this CCCA thing, I want to get your thoughts on the AWS hack or outage.
What is accessible to anyone other than you is vulnerable to hack. The more valuable it is, the more likely it is to be targeted. Several years ago, it was true that Chinese Ministry of State Security associated advanced persistent threats were pinging every single IP address in the world every single day, right? So they are looking for new addresses, AS changes. They're looking for configuration changes. If your machine responds differently, that gets flagged, and now they start hitting it, right? I've told this story before, that back in like 2000, when I was offensive space control officer, and they made me do cyber stuff at U.S. Space Command. You're like, we don't have anybody else. You do it. So all the intel community representatives had come in. We had, the senior representatives from CIA, DIA, NSA, and we were telling them, because we were now at U.S. Space Command responsible for, at the time we called it computer network defense and attack, but it would now be called offensive defensive cyber operations. We were telling them, look, these are our requirements as the warfighter. We're the Joint Command Lead. This is our situation. So we were telling them, this is the threat situation. And I can remember, so it was my job to give this briefing. The different parts given by different people. This part of it was mine. I'm standing up in front of it. It's a room of these guys, a real senior. I'm not an intel guy. I'm an operator. I'm a space guy at that time. And so, and I can remember saying, Department of Defense networks are being attacked 1 million times a year. And it shocked them.
Mhm.
It was silent. They were shocked at 1,000,000 times a year. It's probably 1,000,000 times an hour at this point.
Yeah.
Right. And so there is we're at war in cyber. This is the thing people have to understand. If you go back and if you really want to understand it, you can, look at Boone's work and look at unrestricted warfare. The Chinese academic, a couple colonels in the Chinese PLA wrote this back. I want to say it was maybe 2007 or 8. But anyway, unrestricted warfare. We're at war in cyber forever. If we have computers, we're at war. If we have networks, we're at war with them. And what I mean by that is they're going to try to attack them, penetrate, exploit, take them over, use them to get to other systems, corrupt. That is going to be happening.
But not elections.
Except for elections, which are the most secure, if only we
Of
had
reproach.
Yeah, if only we could get the people who build election systems at the Chinese plant in Wuhan for Dell, and then the Serbian software program. If only we could get them to do some work on our defense systems, they could be impervious.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're doing the best we can, with the guys who are making like $5-6 million a year for their skill set. But
yeah. The other aspect, just before we get into, because some of these we're going to go through kind of line by line about what these guys claim, and Matt Crane and David Becker's posting this out there as well. David Becker last month or the month before did a town hall to all of his network, right? And he's doing these regularly now. Brian and I do Mystery Science Theater on him whenever we have the opportunity. It's a lot of fun. But in it, he, the first one that he did, he admits that no voting systems in the country are compliant with the voluntary voting system guidelines from, I think it's 2005. Is that right? The most recent one?
No, 2021 is the most recent. Yeah.
But they're not even compliant with 2005.
They are not.
And it was, I was, thinking about this today. I was having a conversation with someone we both know, and thinking about like the technology that we use today, the concepts of it existed, but a lot of it didn't even exist. And we are told by these people, and you'll see a lot of this in the thing that we're going to go through. We're told by all of the experts, the official experts is the term that they use, actual experts. We're told that we have the safest and most secure systems, that everything is great. There are these vulnerabilities don't exist. And, you and I've had this conversation before, but that one of the things that made me kind of perk up in December really of 2020 is that I really felt like I was being gaslit. Because I'm not a technologist, but I worked in the people and communications side of technology organizations for technology projects. And so I worked with a lot of cyber experts at different points. And safest and most secure and cannot be breached are things that cyber experts don't say. These are because there's a liability there, right? And in the management consulting world, tech consulting world, it's a big liability. If you say, well, if you just buy this solution and allow us to implement it for you, it'll be the safest and most secure in the world, and then they get hacked, if you have said that, you can be held liable. That's why they tell consultants not to use the term expert. It's specialist, right? Like it's a liability thing. And all of a sudden, the authorities in cyber were saying the words that giving levels of assurance that cyber experts are very loath to commit to, even if they have, one of the best security profiles. So that was really surprising to me and made me perk up and pay attention. And then it was, the demonization started. So when we started asking the questions that they couldn't answer, and, well, you're not an elections expert, so you can't possibly understand this Dell computer ecosystem. It was the shame and mockery. And then they started attacking, and then we were dangerous, and then we were terrorists, and then we were
extremists. Right?
Yeah.
We were trying to undermine trust in elections, right?
That's what they say.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to trust elections. It would be super
nice.
cool if we could trust elections, but we can't. And the people that are responsible for public trust in elections keep lying to us about that.
That's about right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So this is the Colorado County Clerks Association. Is that coming up big enough to read? I can read it, but I want people to see it. Mesa County security breach, an examination of the claims and the full explanation. So I'm just going to go into some of the stuff in the beginning. I know you're going to laugh, but don't answer all of these because they're detailed below, and we're going to go each one in detail. But I'm just going to read through the intro here, jump over the part where they demonize Tina Peters for a while, and we'll get down into the specific claims. But here they start. The Mesa reports, a set of documents authored by individuals conducting what they described as a, quote, forensic examination, end quote, of Mesa County voting systems, claim to show evidence of illegality and vulnerabilities. However, official investigations and professional analyses by actual election experts found no such evidence. They determined that the authors either fundamentally misunderstood or deliberately misrepresented election procedures, system functionality, and the law by producing half-truths, falsehoods, and fundamentally flawed conclusions. You can respond if you want.
Where to even begin with this? This sounds like so. Remember, they spent a lot of money. Matt Crane, so he's got two incomes. He's got the executive director of Colorado County's clerk,
paid for by the dues that are paid for by the clerks,
paid for by public funds, basically, plus the sponsors. Right, the sponsors for all their conferences are basically like Runback and Dominion and stuff like that. And then he also works for Lafayette Group. Lafayette Group, remember, they're supposed to help with security and emergency management, but they also have this section or subsidiary, and it does strategic communications, and that's where the whole MDM, the malware or malinformation, disinformation, misinformation structure came from. That entire sort of narrative that was glommed onto, that they trained all the public officials. No, say this, Trusted Source Tuesday, that whole thing, all of that came out of that group. And he spent a lot of money. We looked at, I think it was a financial report, and they spent a lot of money on public relations, public affairs type people. And this is their public affairs consultant language, right? Because when you listen to Matt, he's kind of like Griswold. He's not as bad as Griswold. Griswold, if you get her you get Griswold off script. It's a train wreck. Right?
Two sets of passwords. Two sets of passwords.
She starts sweating bullets. You can just see it, like it's going sideways fast. It's like watching a airplane skid off the runway.
Yeah. Well, what are the two passwords used for? Well, there's two sets of passwords.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem, right? Is that both of them have a technical knowledge depth of, it's like veneer thickness. I can remember I remember Matt's email that we were responding to back in 2022. He actually wrote out sequel. Now, if you're just a layperson in the public and you like a sequel, like it's a movie sequel, so what? But if you're proclaiming to be an expert about something and you don't even know that SQL, when we're talking about in terms of like Microsoft SQL Server Studio, SQL is structured query language and it's spelled SQL. If that's your level of knowledge, you should zip it.
It's even worse than that, though. It's worse than that because it was put out as to the General Assembly as they're getting ready to vote on legislation. And I think he was working with 5280 strategies on that one. But it was put out as the authority, remember the official investigators and the actual experts put it out. But that implies, Shawn, that he didn't even have it reviewed by a technical expert.
True. Yeah. Well, remember, like when the Mesa County Board of County Commissioners first got, so the very first thing that I think it was Janet Rowland did when Clerk Peters gave her a copy of the report number 1, literally the first thing she did was give it to Ashby at the Sentinel. She didn't even read
reporter.
It. The next thing they did was they reached out because they had no technical knowledge. They reached out to get perspective. So they had a guy who did like ransom negotiation for cyber ransom, who's not an expert. And then they had poor Carl, who was the IT guy for Chuck Broerman in El Paso. And both of those clowns, did not understand even what was being said to them. So that was Doug Gould. That was a guy who'd been doing cyber forensic work at the national security level for decades. That was report number 1. And it's like they just went out and grabbed hobos off the street to give them an opinion, right? Do you know what a computer is? Hey, why don't you look at this report and give us your opinion? So then that was Janet Rowland's opinion. But then, like, the next
Janet
thing that
Rowland was the
happened,
county commissioner in Mesa County.
yeah, the next thing that happened was that Rubenstein, the DA, and his very special, his special investigator, he's the specialist. He's the most special of investigators because he has no cyber knowledge either. Like I don't know if they have a short bus that picks him up and takes him to work, but he's the most special investigator of all. So then those guys did a rebuttal. That's the only official investigation I'm aware of.
That's such a great point. Because
then they present, that was only on report number 1. They didn't refute most of what we're talking about. They didn't refute any of it, but they didn't even address most of what we're talking about. They just had made up answers. They admitted that their answers came from Dominion. Yeah. They said, oh, it's shown on video. The video didn't even show the time frame for the events that were in question that created the duplicate database. It was like, oh, it's on video. Show us. Well, there's a gap. there's literally no video.
Time drift. There's time drift.
Yeah. And well, time drift was his explanation for how you know that the machines aren't connected to the internet. Because
I thought it was his explanation for the gap in the video.
No. Time drift was their explanation for how you can be sure that none of the machines are connected to the internet, which isn't even the right question, but it's also not a valid assertion because you can have network time source turned on or off on any computer. And you can also change it. There are attacks that, like cron jobs where you're changing the time on the system in order to be able to mask your trail. Anyway, there were no official investigations.
Yeah. So that's a really good point you made because it's going to come up a lot, I think, as we go through this, that they're making false statements in this, not just like, double consultant speak, not the same kind of, they're making false statements. So official investigations and professional analyses by actual elections experts found no such evidence. So they don't say cyber experts, but also, is James Cannon an elections expert?
I doubt it. Yeah.
He was named their elections investigator, and I think he got promoted after this, if I'm not mistaken. And I'll retract that if it's not true, but I recall that. I wouldn't even know where to go to look that up right now. But it's mind blowing to me that who are the official investigators and which actual experts did professional analyses to make these assertions?
Who? The best men. No.
Yeah.
There was no. Remember when Rubenstein presented that, he wasn't even under oath. He never went under oath. It's just like this document. Nobody signed this.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like the EAC's statement that there was no lapse in Pro V&V accreditation. Absolutely false. And they didn't sign it or even date it.
Yeah.
But anyway, we can cover that.
Yeah. So, all right. So the 4 reports he breaks down here. Mesa reports attempt to undermine confidence in Colorado elections by making false or misleading claims about election technology and procedures. That's projection, as you will see. A thorough review reveals, report 1, falsely claims the trusted bill deleted election records that were not otherwise retained. In reality, all legally required records were preserved. And they go into greater detail in the table below. So I'm just going to read through these and then we'll go through them one by one.
Okay.
Report 2, falsely claims Colorado systems were uncertified, that Wi-Fi connectivity existed, and that unauthorized software was installed. In reality, the lab Colorado uses for testing was EAC accredited. Wi-Fi was permanently disabled. SQL Server and SQL Server Management Studio were part of the certified suite, and the Colorado Department of State approved the use of LibreOffice. Report 3, falsely claims unauthorized databases existed in adjudication. In reality, the databases were normal, authorized election management EMS system EMS functions. The issue stemmed from staff error troubleshooting, not malicious code, and all ballots were accounted for. Report 4, falsely claims election records were destroyed, reports were created illegally, and misrepresents voting patterns as fraud. In reality, all legally required records were preserved. Generating reports before Election Day is not illegal unless results are released. Claims of unusual patterns overlook Colorado's nonpartisan local elections and its demonstrated history of ticket splitting, e.g., voters supporting liberal candidates while opposing tax increases. So that's the summary of what the claims that Matt Crane and David Becker and company are attempting to debunk with this document. The generating reports before Election Day is not illegal unless results are released. That one was surprised to me. Was that in the Mesa reports?
Report number 4 that Jeff O'Donnell did. He brought that up. I mean, that was one of the points that he identified within the report. Really, it was
because I know that claim, but I haven't heard it from Mesa County. I've heard it from Elbert County. Dallas and I don't know if Rhonda was on, but Dallas came on and told the story of how they were doing a test, right, with the Dominion rep, and she went to do something the way that they already do it, regularly do it, and the rep was like, "Oh no, it's way easier to just do it this way," and proceeded to tell them how to pause the election event and check the results and then restart the election event. And the operating system log captures the pause and the restart, but doesn't capture that they checked the election results in between those two times.
Yeah, they generated a tally off the ImageCast Central scanner, not the EMS, but the scanner, which means that the scanner is keeping a tally and is producing reports and is not logging production of those reports. Then the only question is, right, I mean, this is the point. If you want to start there, this is the point with it's not illegal to generate a report. Why would you generate a report?
Yeah. Why does that capability exist specifically without the log file?
And it can't see that in and of itself, that by itself is a violation. Because so in Colorado, remember, the mandatory minimum standard for certification of any voting system is the 2002 voting system standards.
Yeah.
And it's old, but you nailed it when you said it's all the same functions, but there was technology and things that they couldn't anticipate, right? In terms of security and threats.
Like
they did not anticipate
and cloud computing.
Exactly. There were a lot of aspects to it. As well as the complexity of the hardware. I mean, remember the hardware that existed at that time. There's a million times more processing capability in the graphics chip alone than there was in the total set of processors in a computer-based election system at that time.
So we're talking about 2002, right? The iPod came out in 2001, on today, actually. Today when we're recording this.
Yeah, it's before the iPhone. And those standards were effectively written by NAS and delivered by National Association of Secretaries of State. And they were old. I mean, they were obsolete in a sense. They had some good content in them. One of the things they had in them. So remember, this is the mandatory minimum standard in Colorado. Cannot certify a voting system or use it or purchase it if it doesn't meet those standards. There's a whole section in there about general purpose computers because at least they were far enough along that they understood if a computer is capable of multiple simultaneous processes, then it can run processes that modify what it is displaying and storing. So it's not good enough anymore to just be testing or monitoring or auditing the election or voting system software itself. You have to know what's happening on the whole system, because the whole system could literally be running a subroutine that is changing the math that affects what happens with the tally in the voting system. And so there were a set of requirements, 3 requirements. One of those requirements for any computer system that's being used for elections, that's running, I think what they say is that's running election software, for any system or component that's being used, it has to log every single thing that happens on that system. It has to log networking, it has to log communications, it has to log normal starts and stops, error messages, warnings, any halts, user activity, logins, all of it. There's basically, if anything happens, if it uses a processor or a memory or anything, it must be logged. And this is the part that Crane and this whole entire clown car of election experts keep trying to misstate. They deceptively state that you only have to log what is coming from the voting system or vendor software. And that is absolutely false. It's literally right in the 2002 VSS, and that is required by the Colorado state statutes. So if the system doesn't do that, it's illegal to certify it and it's illegal to use. And yet that's what's happening.
And yet,
yeah, it's exactly what's been happening for a couple decades here. And
all right, so the first one is exactly about that point. So the Mesa report claim is that the trusted build deleted election records. Facts and official findings say the trusted build is a controlled, state-supervised procedure in which new voting system software and firmware certified by the state of Colorado after testing by a federally accredited voting system testing laboratory, VSTL, are installed, ensuring only approved versions of software are present. These updates are necessary to improve system functionality and security and are a routine, standard process in election administration. All required election records are preserved before the process begins, and every step is logged and witnessed by authorized personnel. The files cited in Mesa Report 1 were routine Windows operating system event logs that are automatically overwritten by the system. This normal computer behavior is not evidence of deletion or tampering. Operating system logs are not election records. Under federal law, 52 U.S.C. 2701, state law, Colorado Revised Statute 1-7-802, and election rule, Colorado Election Rule 20.10.2, election records include ballots, CVRs, chain of custody, documentation, audit logs, etc., not operating system files. Election records are preserved every election and again before the trusted build takes place. Conclusion, report number 1, central claim is incorrect. There was no fraud, no destruction of election records, only incorrect legal interpretation.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I mean, if in any other domain of technology, if the system logs were removed before the auditor came in, would that would it
mens rea? It's evidence of obstruction.
Right,
if it was a regular audit, yeah, that's what. So just to establish the baseline, anybody can go look at this themselves. Colorado Revised Statute 15601.5 says that voting systems that are purchased or leased for use in Colorado must comply with the standards promulgated in 2002 by the Federal Election Commission. That's 2002 voting system standards. Volume 1 of the 2002 voting system standards, paragraph 2253, COTS or commercial off-the-shelf general purpose computer system requirements, describes the requirements for general purpose computers, describes the vulnerabilities, says 3 protections are required for all such systems on which election software is hosted. For the Dominion systems in Colorado, that would be the ImageCast Central, which is the scanner tabulator, the election management system, any adjudication or client workstation off of the server, the ImageCast voter activation terminal, and the ImageCast X touchscreen ballot marking devices at a minimum. First, authentication shall be configured on local terminal and all external connection devices. They don't actually meet that standard because it includes any network device, which would include the switch. They use switches where they don't do that. Second, operating system audit shall be enabled. This is critical. Operating system audit. It's right there. It's black and white. Shall be enabled for all session openings and closings, all connection openings and closing, all process executions and terminations, the alteration or deletion of.
Are you reading the Colorado statute?
No, I'm reading the voting system standard, which is required by the Colorado statute. All process executions and terminations, and the alteration or deletion of any memory or file object. This ensures the accuracy and completeness of election data stored on the system and ensures the existence of an audit record of any person or process altering or deleting system data or election data. Without this, you don't have an audit trail.
Yeah.
That's why it's the minimum standard. And yet, there's Matt Crane, Colorado County Clerks, the trusted source, saying yet again, now this could come from Griswold and it doesn't matter because Griswold doesn't like it. If you put her in a room and there were only two objects,
2 sets of passwords,
and one of them was a steel sphere and the other one was a desktop computer, and you said, point at the computer, you got a 50-50 chance. Now, Crane knows a little bit more, but this is obviously a lie, and it's black and white. You can just go look at it.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that like when we did this in 2002, this is why I think, like, I texted you earlier, I'm like, it's a rerun, but I also think they might have expanded their claims a little bit in here, because they never admitted that they removed operating system logs before. They just told us all required, all lawfully required files to be retained have been retained, and they never would show them to us if we demanded, right? Like if we were like, okay, fine, you say that they're all retained, let us see that you actually retained them. They would never show them to us. They could just keep saying, no, we got them. We got all the files we need to get. But here they're saying operating system logs are not election records, which to me is an admission that operating system logs were in fact deleted.
These words were routine Windows operating system event logs that are automatically overwritten. He just told you that system is illegal to certify in Colorado.
Yeah.
Right. He just admitted it. It's like,
are you sure that you're not just trying to, undermine confidence in Matt Crane?
That's my entire purpose, is to undermine. I have to caveat, right? Because remember when I was up on stage and I was like, I'm the number one most, dangerous election denier. Yeah. I was mocking them. And then they took it.
You were mocking Quentin Young specifically.
Yeah, he calls himself the most dangerous election denier.
Yeah, I was number 5, which I'm still pissed about. I should have at least been number 3.
Can't meme, no sense of humor. Right. Anyway. Yeah, I know.
All right. The second claim that we have here, and I
just want to say one more thing about the election file. So Trusted Build was like the cleanup crew. It overwrote what was left. Remember, the system was configured. This is the second part that's illegal. You're not even supposed to be able to modify the audit trail on a voting system. The Dominion voting system, EMS, Election Management Server Maintenance Manual, that was part of the technical data package written by the vendor, proposed for certification, that the Secretary of State Griswold approved, in other words, certified for use in Colorado, literally directed election officials using the systems to configure the systems in a manner in which they would automatically overwrite system log files. That is a violation of both Colorado law and federal statute.
And that's the thing, is that and I don't know because I'm not a technologist, but you would think that the system log function would default to capturing the activity, and it would have to be manipulated and configured in a way that it wasn't going to capture certain functions. Is that an accurate assumption or no?
You mean if you were trying to get away with it?
If you're commercial off the shelf version of, the OS.
Well, in Windows, so in Windows 10, Windows 11, and Windows Server 2016, I don't know what the latest version is, but it's all the same. When you're configuring logs, you have 3 options. One of them is to archive if you exceed the file size. In other words, it'll just save the existing one and start a new one for the log file. The second option, and these are like little like
radio buttons.
Yeah, radio buttons you could choose. First option is archive. Second option is notify. Third option is overwrite. In other words, if the bucket gets full, dump some out, dump the older stuff out. The third option is the only one that it absolutely violates the voting system standards and therefore violates Colorado law and violates federal law, because it would automatically overwrite log files, which are part of the audit trail and therefore are election records.
Yeah.
It's the only option of the 3 that is absolutely indisputably illegal. And that's what the manuals direct. That's what the Secretary of State directed and certified.
Yeah. And it's not a mistake. It's not a whoopsie. It's the direction that they're given.
Then you get to the trusted build, and that wipes out whatever's left on the operating system side.
Yeah.
So that the only story left, the only audit trail, is whatever the vendor told you or decided to save in the election project. So it'd be like,
the most secure.
It's like a child writing their own excuse notes.
All right, second one here. Systems not certified because VSTL accreditation expired. Facts and official findings. Only the Election Assistance Commission can revoke accreditation. 52 USC 20971. Accreditation does not expire automatically. Colorado Revised Statute 1-5-608.5 and Colorado Election Rule 21 those two statute, the statute and the rule require accredited labs and standards. EAC never voted to revoke accreditation of Pro VNV. The VSTL Colorado uses. The EAC has confirmed this.
So absolute lie. So, and I've got all the emails between Judge Choate and Mona Harrington at EAC, which showed that it was a lie. When Judge Choate said it was a lie. He had nothing from EAC. He was begging them for it. Here's what's actually true. So per Title 52, the only people who can accredit a voting system testing lab are the EAC commissioners by vote. That's a fact. At the time that they approve the voluntary voting system guidelines, so there was a version in 2005, 2015, and 2021. At the time they approve them, they also approve program certification testing manuals that are part of the exercise of their responsibilities under Title 52 to supervise and specify standards for voting system testing and certification by accredited labs. In 2005 and 2015, which the 2015 standards were in effect until January of 2021, which means they were in effect from 2015 through 2021, the voting system certification or the voting system program manual for voting system testing labs was explicit that accreditation was valid for 2 years and 2 years only. And at the end of 2 years, the accreditation expired, and that if the voting system testing lab made timely application for reaccreditation and provided all the necessary documentation and proof, that they could continue in good standing until the EAC commissioners voted to either accept that accreditation and renew it or not to. Pro VNV was accredited in 2015, and the certificate itself says that it expires in 2 years. It expired in 2017, and they did not make a timely application. The EAC commissioners did not vote to either accept the application that Pro VNV didn't make. They just ignored it.
Yeah.
And Pro VNV continued testing, even though they were not accredited in accordance with federal law. At the point where their accreditation expired, according to the EAC's own approved guidance and their certificate, they were no longer allowed to test for certification of voting systems. EAC knows this.
Yeah.
Right. And so what they did in 2021 was Jerome Lovato, who had followed Ryan Macias as the testing certification program director under EAC, modified in the 2021 version to accompany VVSG 2.0 the program testing and certification manuals to eliminate any mention of expiration.
Wow.
And they removed it from their website. But we went back in the Wayback Machine and looked at the EAC website and found where they had listed voting system testing labs with expired accreditation.
Yeah.
So they've tried to hide and cover up the whole thing. And I think Crane knows this. I know Choate knows this. And I know Mona Harrington knows this, which is part of the reason she got fired out of CISA. So she went from EAC to CISA into the, election cybersecurity group, and she got canned, I think in February.
So the assertion here is that accreditation does not automatically expire, and so everything's totally fine. But the reality is we're talking about the election on 2020, and in 2020, that was not the standard. They changed the standard in 2021, and now they're saying that our assertions are false because based on the new standard, not the one that was in effect in the election.
Exactly. So it's worse than that. And the reason it's worse than that is because when you go read the actual test plans and test reports for successive versions, they play this game where they say, this is just a modification. 5.13 is a modification of 5.11. 5.17 is a modification of 5.5D. 5.5D is a modification of C. C is a modification of B. B is a modification, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, it's like a Breck. It's like a Breck shampoo commercial. They all told friends. But you go back and when you look at the test report for like 5.17, which is the current Dominion version in Colorado, it says this was a modification of this prior version. In this case, it was 5.5D. And so we didn't do all the testing. We relied upon that prior report for some of the testing. In reality, for most of the testing, like they didn't even do security testing on 5.17. They did it on, like, I think the last one they did security testing on was maybe 5.5B. But when you go back and look at the testing they relied upon, the current voting systems that were certified like in 2021, 2, 3, 4, all have testing that was based on testing done in the period when ProVMV was not legally accredited. That cannot be relied upon. They were not an accredited testing lab.
Yeah.
That invalidates any certification for any system testing that was based upon that prior testing. And
so both the two statements we've looked at from the CCCA so far are false.
Yeah.
We have a bunch more. So
egregiously false. Egregiously false.
Egregiously false.
Yeah.
All right. Wi-Fi components present, systems connected to the internet. CRS 1-5, facts and official findings. CRS 1-5-616 and Colorado Election Rule 20.5.3 sub A sub 1 prohibits voting systems from being connected to the internet. The Wi-Fi capability was disabled and verified in BIOS firmware during the trusted build. Now, this one is a lot of fun for me because I broke the story in 2022 that the Secretary of State was telling all of the clerks to check, just, in the middle of the election event, just check and make sure that your machines aren't accidentally reconnecting to the internet. And here's a set of guidelines for how to check that in your Dominion machines in your county. And that was we had been told, they don't even have that capability. Machines can't connect to the internet for 2 years. And then right before the midterms, they're like, hey, guys, just check and make sure that your machines don't accidentally reconnect.
Yeah, so that there's so much wrong with this. First of all, it's not just about the internet. It's about anything outside the certified boundary of the system. If it can connect to anything, for example, the integrated Dell remote access controllers on the Dell PowerEdge servers that are used for election management servers in the Dominion Democracy Suite system have a near field communication capability. So you could literally be within, maybe 20, 25 feet. And if it's looking for or listening for a particular signal, like a handshake from a particular device, you're connected into the just absolute brain of the system. And to understand that IDRAC, integrated Dell remote access controller, it only has one purpose. It's embedded in the motherboard. You can't remove it. You could destroy it. You could probably physically disable it, but you can't really software disable it because it's connected into hardware. Its entire and sole purpose is remote management of that server and anything connected to it, either temporarily, like through media that bridges an air gap, or through a network connection, which is basically the whole voting system. So the idea that, you've disabled the Wi-Fi component, they didn't even know they have Wi-Fi components. For example, they're not disabling the Wi-Fi components on the ICXs. And they used to have, at the time of the 2020 election, now they're using mostly what they call classics, which is an A-Vision device. It's like a medical all-in-one computer touchscreen. Those don't theoretically have wireless networking built into them, although they do have internal USB ports that you could just jam a USB dongle into. And they're not opening them up and looking, I guarantee. They're not. They don't even know where their Wi-Fi capabilities are. Like I think it was last year where the Boulder clerk, they announced, oh, we don't have any more Wi-Fi. It's like I said, here, it's right here in this machine. It's in your configuration.
Well, you'll see down here, he says no Wi-Fi was functional, which is a different claim than we've been told in the past. That's changing what they told us before. And it's still not true, right?
But the equipment that they put in the brought in with 517 2024, they removed in theory, a lot of the Wi-Fi capability that they had during 2020, 21, 22, 23. They just removed the physical components by changing out the computers. The new computers or components that they got from Dell, in theory, did not have Wi-Fi.
Why would they do that?
Well, clearly there's no reason to do it because
there's no reason to do it. Yeah.
Just like there was no reason to have Wi-Fi capability to begin with. If you went into a store and they said, would you like this device added onto your computer? It will cost you $100. And you said, well, I'm not going to use that device. Like, I don't know, a sip and puff controller. Like if you were handicapped, you'd want a sip and puff controller. If you can use a mouse, you don't want a sip and puff controller. Do you want a sip and puff controller? It's $100. No. Why would I want that? So it's fascinating and I think suspicious that you have thousands of Wi-Fi devices in the voting systems in Colorado in the 2020 election that we're not going to use and that cost extra. Right? That's fascinating. But
and
then
create vulnerability.
Yeah, exactly. Then the idea that you could verify that they were disabled and that you would know they had stayed disabled because you checked it in BIOS and firmware. First of all, they're not checking firmware. Like if I asked right now, I bet if I called, I could probably get Matt's number. I could call him up, pretend to be a reporter. He doesn't know my name. I mean, he doesn't know my voice really. I could pretend to be a reporter and say, hey, can you explain what firmware is? And I would get some clownish answer. There's not a single county official in the state that knows what firmware is, knows how much firmware is installed. Or if you ask them, how many background processes, just off the top of your head, do you think are running on any one of your Windows voting system components? You're going to get a range. It's probably in the order of about 85 to 95, likely. Now, okay, great. Now tell us what they are. They're not going to have the slightest idea. So they don't know if there are applications within the operating system or even in the BIOS, or there's not just one BIOS, right? There's 3 BIOS effectively on most of these computers.
And only 2 sets of passwords?
Yeah, exactly. There's the BIOS that they're aware of. There's a UEFI BIOS, which is on startup, that has Pixie functions that can basically operate all the hardware before you get logged into the operating system. And then there's also effectively a BIOS associated with the Minix operating system on the chipset that is associated with active management, Intel active management technology. So every one of these servers that uses a Xeon or workstation, desktop, notebook that uses an iSeries processor, they have active management technology in them. That is the counterpart that is designed to be managed and configured by iDRAC or another enterprise controller. So those are all designed so that if you work at, I don't know, some large corporation and you're just some drone, the IT department can manage the configuration of your computer while you're working on it, while you're home asleep, without the computer ever looking like it's being affected, right? It doesn't power on or anything. They can do all of that in the background. They can change anything on it, any software, any configuration. They can load new stuff. They can remove all your data, remove you as a user. So the idea that election officials are somehow verifying that Wi-Fi is disabled and then know that it's disabled throughout the conduct of an election, it's absurd. It's absurd beyond belief.
Yeah, so our next 2 on report 2, and I just realized why this feels like they expanded the rerun is because when we originally did this, only 2 reports were out, I think.
That's right. That's part of it.
All right, so I'm going to do what they say about SQL Server Management Studio and what they say about LibreOffice together, just in the interest of time, and then to let you respond to the claims. SQL Server Management Studio is a critical component for the Dominion EMS, especially for the adjudication process. It was disclosed, tested, and certified under Colorado Election Rule 20.2. And then they say LibreOffice under Colorado Election Rule 20.5.3 sub D, a clerk may install software on the voting system if directed to or approved by the Secretary of State. Mesa County had Secretary of State approval to install LibreOffice. Report 2's claims are baseless. The VSTL was accredited. No Wi-Fi was functional. SQL was certified and LibreOffice was approved. I thought when we did this in 2022, Shawn, that they said that SQL Server Management Studio was incidental on the machines and not critical to what they were doing. I might be misremembering that.
SQL Server Management Studio, which is basically like a back end into every single SQL database, into the project, even into the way that SQL operates and what it opens up to, whether it shares information with other applications or services. And it's like a graphical interface. It's like an easy button set, but it's very powerful. It absolutely was not part of 5.11 CO. I'm looking at the application for certification from Dominion, and neither SQL Server Management Studio nor LibreOffice are listed. It wasn't in the test plan. It's not in the test report. It's not in the application for certification. Matt is lying. That report was based on 5.11 CO. LibreOffice wasn't even that good, right? LibreOffice is just like open source software. I've got the open records response from 2019 where Ed Morgan is asking Joe Bianchi, who's a nice guy, by the way. Joe Bianchi does a lot of their score support. I think he's just like a regular IT guy that got caught up in the middle of this. Like he walked into the room like, hey, hold this atomic material, would you? Edward Morgan, though, is election staff within Secretary of State's office. And so I've got their whole discussion in open records where they said, yeah, we just downloaded it off the internet. The IT guys just download it. And then we told the counties to install it. And then they talk about how they're going to give it to Dominion to put onto the golden image. Well, this didn't go to testing. It's illegal to put it on the golden image. That's an alteration of the configuration of the system. Secretary of State should never allow that to be installed on any voting system, but it's worse than allowing it. She directed it effectively through her staff. Now, what Matt's saying is that Secretary of State can direct these changes, but the Secretary of State is not an authority that can override Colorado revised statute. So CRS 15618 is what tells her and everybody else what you must do if you intend to modify a voting system. She never went through this process and she never approved it in writing.
So I just pulled up what he said in 2022 to the General Assembly. I'm going to read these side by side. SQL Server Management Studio is a critical component for the Dominion EMS, especially for the adjudication process. It was disclosed, tested, and certified under Colorado Election Rule 20.2. Now, in 2022, this is what they're saying in 2025. 2022, he said, on the Dominion system, SQL Server Management Studio software plays a role in adjudication. Grifters and bad actors contend that because this part of SQL was not explicitly identified on the Colorado application for certification, that its use is illegal. This is more malinformation. While it was not explicitly identified on the certification, it is common knowledge that SSMS is a normal part of having SQL installed. So now they're saying it was disclosed, tested, and certified. Then they were saying, listen, it wasn't disclosed, tested, and certified, but it's totally fine.
Yeah, and his statement is false. So you could literally go see on Microsoft's site at that time, SQL Server and SQL Server Management Studio are two different products. They're separate downloads. Yeah. SQL Server and so SQL
it's not a normal part of having SQL.
No, SQL Server Management Studio is not a normal part, and you would not want it.
Well, they use it in adjudication, which is the worst place to use it. Yeah. And we've seen this, right? We had Phil Davis on and we went through the 2020 and 2024 adjudication process, which, if I'm not mistaken, he showed us the SQL Server Management Studio and how you can use that in the adjudication process.
Yeah. And even, Mark Cook had done the demo where he showed that, first of all, you can use it in the back end to go directly into the database and alter it. You can alter how it so if you, let's say, because of the way the SQL Server project database actually functions, so you sort of have a key that translates a specific machine ID into a specific candidate or issue response. But the SQL tables, when they're doing tallying, are just dealing with the machine ID. All you have to do is switch the machine IDs, and you can allocate all of the votes that a tabulator counted for one candidate or for one issue response to a completely different one. You can switch the third-party candidate to the GOP or the GOP to the Democrat. You can do all of that. He demonstrated not only that you could do that, but that if the wireless was open for even a moment, you could do it from an iPhone.
Yeah.
And that's just scratching the surface. That kind of,
and it's undetectable for any of the
That's
regular people ways that look right. And we know because we do risk limiting audits and we have paper records, right? That's what Halderman says. That's what they're all Liberty Vote says it too, right? We're all on board. Everything's fine because we have paper ballots, paper records, a paper record, and risk limiting audits. That means that the ability to change votes inside the machines doesn't matter because we'll know if it happens because the risk limit, it's so nonsensical to me. And it's just a diversion from them having questions they can't answer.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So report 3, I knew we were going to run out of time. All right. Report 3, adjudication and databases. Unauthorized databases created, not caused by human action. The unauthorized findings and facts and official findings. And again, who are the official people finding the official findings? The official findings are coming from non-technical people. The
Experts.
Unauthorized, what?
Experts.
Experts.
Like Matt.
Yeah. The unauthorized databases were not unauthorized at all. They were routine functions of the Certified Election Management System. The Mesa County District Attorney's Office opened a separate investigation into the claims made in this report. Backed by video evidence, staff interviews, and a recreation of events, they confirmed the extra databases were created by human action when the elections manager attempted troubleshooting during adjudication. This was a user mistake, not a hidden algorithm or malicious software. This new database was a normal function of the voting system. Well, was it a normal function or was it a user error? Importantly, Mesa County staff verified that all the ballots were fully accounted for using the system backups required pursuant to federal law 52 USC 20701, state law TRS 1-7-802, and Colorado election rule 20.10.2.
There are a couple words in that are not a lie. Like the word of, and then also where it says and. Those aren't lies. Pretty much everything else is a lie. So first of all, if your voting system, if your election management system, which is supposed to be the brain of the system, can create a database that is different than the database that all your results have been going into in the middle of an election, it's not legal for you to use that system. It actually violates Colorado revised statute because it violates the voting system standards. That's the first thing. Yeah. Second, there was nothing routine about this. There should never be, because when and this was the big deal. So there were 2 elections that this was Jeff O'Donnell, his work, and it was then verified by Doc Doherty, by the professor emeritus from Texas A&M. So 2 very experienced cyber investigators. The big deal was not just that there were duplicate databases, it was that the copying of the records between the old and new databases was done differently in the general election in November 2020 than in the Grand Junction municipal election. One of them, the records were copied sequentially, and one of them, they were not. That cannot be the result. It's impossible for that to be the result of the same actions. Yeah. Routine or not. So first of all, it'd be illegal to use the system if it could do this. It's illegal to use the system. Second, it was done 2 different ways. That's not a result of the same function. Now, Mesa County District Attorneys opened, I don't know why that's possessive, but opened a separate investigation into the claims made in the report. No, they came and gave a briefing about it where they said, this is what Dominion said. They never consulted an outside or independent cyber forensic expert. They could have gone to CBI. Colorado Bureau of Investigation has cyber expertise. FBI has cyber expertise, and one of those was a federal election. And yet they involved no outside cyber expertise. They just went to the vendor and asked them basically, is this okay?
They did that with the Conic thing too. I
Yeah.
remember when the Conic days,
thing.
when we found out that Poll Chief was in all of our systems, the Poll Chief could not be found anywhere on the CDOS website, but Poll Chief was used in our systems. And I reached out to my clerk here, and we don't use Dominion or any of that. We're clear ballot, whatever. But they got back to me and they're like, "Oh, it's fine. The vendor said that there's no access to China." I'm like, the vendor was just arrested.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
It's your source.
It's like Han Solo in the trash compactor control room. Everything's fine. Situation normal.
All right, last one on report. Their last debunk on report 3. Mesa report claims database anomalies indicated possible vote flipping or adjudication bias. Changes in adjudication not logged. Facts and official findings. Adjudication is the process used to resolve questions about voter intent on paper ballots that a scanner could not read automatically. For example, when a voter crosses out a choice or makes stray marks. Bipartisan election judges review the original ballot image and determine voter intent, with all actions logged and audited. Mesa Report 3 misrepresented this routine, transparent process as evidence of vote manipulation, when in fact, every adjudication action was recorded, auditable, and reviewed by bipartisan judges. All adjudication records were present and fully accounted for when cross-checked against system backups and corresponding ballot images. Conclusion, Report 3's claims are incorrect. There was no fraud, no malicious code, no unauthorized databases, only staff error. Report shows willful misrepresentation or lack of understanding of election systems by report authors.
Yeah, where to begin? I mean, where to even begin with that? First of all, the general public, the lay people are not going to know a lot of the background. But go look at Halderman and his graduate students' paper Unclear Ballot, where they had very small set of code that could manipulate the results of scanned ballot images while they were being scanned before they were tabulated. That's possible, first of all. Second, that's not how adjudication works at all. I've watched adjudication. I've watched adjudication recounts. It's just like when you saw in Maricopa with signature verification, where they're like click, 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 click.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. So I don't want to throw all of it out, right? So I watched adjudication in Elbert County. It's 8,000 voters. They have a bipartisan team in a room where they project all of the, any questionable voter intent things on a wall, and everybody's in there. But when we're talking about something like a Maricopa or an El Paso County or a large county, that's not feasible. And they use the, automated adjudication sometimes, or as we saw in Maricopa, it's just click throughs. Exactly. But that should, I'm very uncomfortable with the bipartisan team determining voter intent. Especially because, as we just talked about with SQL Server Management Studio, some of these adjudication functions can be done behind the scenes. So the user experience of the people doing adjudication is irrelevant. I'm not going out and accusing any elections workers of intentionally, doing adjudication incorrectly. I think to do it at scale, it's happening in the machines. But with the technology landscape, it seems like it's possible to do it in the machines.
Yeah, it's entirely. It reminds me of Lost. Remember where they're just pushing the button? They don't know why. It reminds me of that. Or this happened. This actually happened in the missile field. So we used to do. You'd have to do inspections in your launch control center in the capsule. You'd go around, inspect, right? And we had there were environmental and electrical controls, and I'm me, so I wanted to know what was behind the panel. And so I found out that we were pushing to test this button and logging it. We had pushed to test this button. I pulled the panel off, and there's literally nothing connected to it. It's just like a rubber plunger. There's nothing behind it. There was supposed to be something, but it wasn't there. And so I wrote this up and gave it to the tech shop, and then they submitted it, and it ended up coming back, and they changed our technical orders. But literally for 5-6 years, guys were pushing this button every day and logging that they had verified it. It's like that.
Sounds like a psychological experiment. How long can we get these guys to do it? Turns out 6 years.
Yeah, until you get somebody who wants to know what's behind. So,
Yeah.
but even if you had somebody like that in an election, a judge or somebody, they're not allowed,
Yeah.
right? Most people aren't capable. They're not
Well, they're
allowed.
not elections experts either, Shawn, so they couldn't possibly.
That's right. You cannot open up a case like Elbert County Clerk did, and to make a forensic image of your systems, and can't
Well,
do
not
it.
without, certainly not without getting attacked by the Secretary of State.
That's
All
right.
right. Report 4, final one, logs and record retention. First claim, cast vote record and election night reporting files were generated 6 days before election day, proving a violation of law and an indicator of fraud. Facts and official findings, the mere generation of cast vote record or election night reporting files within the voting system is not a violation of law. What matters is whether any results were prematurely disclosed to the public. Oh my God, they think people are stupid. Colorado law, CRS 1-7.5-107.5, permits counties to begin ballot processing before Election Day, provided that no information concerning the count is released before 7 p.m. on Election Day. The distinction is clear. Generating internal reports for administrative or technical purposes is lawful. Releasing results early is not. What? So, yeah, you have to. And in fact, I believe they've made it a rule that you have to process ballots before Election Day now. You can't wait until Election Day, which is crazy, right? Like if you have a county with 8,000 voters, you can't wait till Election Day and do it on that day. Nope. Jenna says you have to do it early, but processing ballots on Election Day does not require the generation of election night reporting where you can see the results of the race. And what is the need for that? What is the use case where elections workers and early voting are legitimately producing a view of the results before the race is over?
Well, and there's a little semantic effery here. What matters is whether
you can say fuckery if you want.
Yeah, it's fuckery. What matters is whether any results were prematurely disclosed to the public. That's not what the statute says. It says no information concerning the count shall be released. Doesn't say
that statute that's linked right there?
Yeah, 17.5, 107.5. It's not
another
supposed to
lie.
be released. So if you're generating it, why are you generating it? And who got it? And this is the question, right? So every time you moved media back and forth, every time that, a wireless device popped on for a moment, those reports are being generated for a reason. The question is, what is the reason and who got them? And you know what you can't tell from the voting systems? Who generated them?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't get logged. Or who got them because they don't log the communications.
Like, that's crazy. Think about how insane that is. Like, it's not a big deal. It's not unlawful to generate these reports. You just can't release them to anyone. Also, we don't show that we're doing it in the log file. Like, that. What is the legitimate reason?
And we overwrite the log files that would show communication.
Unbelievable. This is like somebody needs to do something, Shawn. Isn't anybody going to do something? Trusted Bill destroyed election record logs. Operating system logs are not election records. Under federal 52 USC 2701 and Colorado law rule. Oh, notice that. Colorado law, and then it says Colorado election rule 20.10.2. Well, those aren't the same thing. Election records include ballots, CVRs, chain of custody documentation, audit logs, etc., not operating system files. Election records are preserved and retained before the trusted build takes place. So we've already discussed how that's false. It's a violation of the statute, but they're really doubling down on that one.
Yeah.
And then unusual voting patterns. Unusual voting patterns are not fraud. The report's so-called voter defection analysis ignores that Colorado municipal elections are nonpartisan. Oh my God. And voter behavior in local races often diverges from partisan patterns. Audits confirmed the results. What? Furthermore, Colorado voters are often support liberal candidates statewide and federal contests, yet vote against tax increases. The claim continued to demonstrate how little the authors understand about elections and voting trends. It should say trends. It says tens. they apparently didn't proof this one either. Slash behaviors. Report 4's claim is misleading. No destruction of election records, no illegal activity, no early release of results.
Yeah, I think we've covered it.
So here's the final question that I have for you, because the reason I think this is so important, they released this report this week, so it was, worthy to go through what their claims are. More of the same that we've heard from these guys, but they are doubling down in a time where this is being looked at, right? The federal government is certainly looking at the election systems and the rules and the elections administration, and looking at weaponization of government, which I think both are present when we're talking about the CCCA and the Colorado Department of State. But I think this is really important, because one of the things that I reported last week were the series of meetings that the Liberty Vote CEO had with the clerks here. So there was one on a Friday with the large metro clerks, and then there was one on the Monday with all the clerks. Steve Schleichert from El Paso County came out and said a bunch of stuff like, all the machines are going to be, decommissioned, and we're moving all of the supply chain back home, and blah, blah, blah. And then the Monday meeting, the Liberty Vote guy said the opposite. The Crane was there. On the invite for that meeting, there were a ton of like the PR firm people, consultant type, lobbyist, consultant, messaging, communications people. And in that meeting, it was pretty much said, according to the clerks that I spoke to, that the purpose of this rebranding is public trust. People don't trust Dominion, so we've got to refresh this thing and calm everybody down and make sure that everybody understands that we're Liberty Vote now. So it's fine. Nothing is changing. They were asked, what can you tell us about what to expect in the changes through 2026? And I think it was Scott Bennett, the former Dominion, current Liberty Vote rep, because he didn't change, just his title, who said nothing. I think whatever you have now is what you're going to have in the future. Only end of life machines are being decommissioned, and we're really doing this because of public trust. That's deeply concerning, especially when they keep, like, Matt Crane was in that meeting, as I understand it. Certainly, if he wasn't in the meeting, he was aware of it, right? Because it was with all the clerks. And I believe it was his invite, though, but I didn't see it. I was just told about it. But with that, they're doubling down. After that meeting, they're doubling down on these claims about Dominion voting system. So what is your, give me your reaction to where we're at with Liberty Vote?
Well, Decker's a complete fraud to start with. He's the behind No Ink. So I've, done quite a bit of background research into him. He didn't create anything. The whole idea that he's got degrees in like history and music or something. And he was an elections administrator in St. Louis. And then they sent him over as an observer in the elections in like Kosovo.
That made me think of Chris Krebs and his undergrad in environmental sciences before becoming a lawyer. And then he was the cyber expert.
Slightly less technical than Chris Krebs. And then he creates the poll pad, which looks a lot like the Tally LLC device and a previous device with patents by Martin White. And all of a sudden, it's got capabilities on it that look like the capabilities that SOE software, which is Seidel, Seidel and SOE merged, basically. SOE was, at that time, the largest election.
Clarity in there too.
United States. Clarity is a subsidiary of Seidel.
Okay.
So Seidel effectively took over SOE. But anyway, the functions on the No Ink poll pad look like SOE and Connect functions, right? So this is all. It's kind of like the technology coming out of like American election systems, GEMS going through Diebold, then becoming Premier, then ES&S, and then Talbot Iredale, the chief architect, goes over to Clear Ballot. It's all the same stuff, right? At one point, they had the Diebold stuff, and then the Department of Justice made them divest it to Dominion, which at the time was like a Canadian company. They literally didn't have a single voting system in use in the United States, other than the stuff they had taken over from Sequoia, when they acquired Sequoia effectively from Smartmatic, even though it was from this like SCG that was created as a holding company over the top of Smartmatic. It's just a shell game. So Decker buying Liberty Vote is ridiculous. And then his claims were, oh yeah, we're gonna make it trustworthy, and he's not changing anything.
Yeah,
they're just rebranding. It's Brawndo is now Power Water.
it is Brawndo. It's got what plants crave. Sadly, not what elections need to be free and fair.
It is the Brawndo of elections.
It is the Brawndo. Liberty Vote is the Brawndo of elections. You heard it here first. Shawn, thank you so much for being here with me today. I appreciate you, and we'll have you back. I'm sure that this is all going to keep heating up. The good thing is that President Trump isn't letting it go. And so, hopefully we'll see some justice. I think that we have to in order to trust our democracy, that is to say the vote, right? If we're going to trust it, we have to have answers to these questions, and we can't keep just getting gaslit by non-technical people cosplaying as technical experts and, shaming and attacking anybody that disagrees with the narrative, which has been the norm for the past 5 years. Yeah, appreciate you being here. Thanks.
Thanks, Ashe.
All right, everybody. Well, we are going to get out of here now. Before I leave, I just want to tell you guys about GART. Of course, next week, going to be at GART. Is it next week? Yeah. This time, two Fridays from now. I'm trying to figure out what date it is. 2 weeks. 2 weeks we'll be at GART. Next week, we'll be recording a bunch of shows for GART, though. So that's always a good time. This is the correct GART overlay. So this is the right people that are going to be there. I think might be the first time that I've actually shown the correct overlay. So I'm, pretty proud of myself for that. But it's going to be a blast. We had our, I'm recording this on Thursday. So we had our third GART live stream today. And if you buy a virtual ticket or an in-person ticket now, you can still go back and watch those live streams. Today's was really fun. We talked about the Denver airport and aliens and deep underground military bases and all kinds of stuff. It was a good time. But with that, I'm going to play our GART ad and our soft disclosure ad, and Spellbreakers is coming up next with Matt Trump, and then Only Lands follows that. And I will see you guys later. Cheers, everyone.
Before skincare went synthetic, people used something simple, something real: tallow. Grass-fed and finished beef tallow is packed with vitamins A, D, E, and K. Nutrients your skin actually knows what to do with. It locks in moisture, restores elasticity, and defends against winter dryness. No water, no preservatives, and no BS. Unlike plant oils or chemical creams, tallow mimics your skin's own structure. Elbows, hands, knees, post-shave, anywhere your skin's crying for real moisture. Perfect for gifting or keeping your own skin soft when the cold hits. Visit softdisclosure.com and use promo code Badlands for 15% off. Ancient care, modern truth.
Here on the sun-kissed shores of Cocoa Beach, where the ocean meets the horizon, the Great American Restoration Tour continues on November 6th through the 9th, 2025. Badlands Media gathers patriots like you, not just to talk, but to rebuild. From truth-telling panels to unbreakable bonds, we're restoring the soul of our nation, one conversation at a time. This is the heart of the Space Coast, where the rockets defy gravity and dreams touch the stars. Feel the thunder of innovation that powers America forward. Together, we're not just healing the past, we're blasting off into a brighter tomorrow. A future where truth prevails, families thrive, and America leads once more. Join us in Cocoa Beach. Get your seat or your virtual stream pass now at badlandsmedia.tv/events. Launch is imminent, and you don't want to miss this liftoff.